Jai Baba. This is the 7th session in our 16 session series on Stay with God, the formal title being Stay with God, Francis Brabazon's epic masterpiece as a proclamation of Meherabad's Avatarhood and foundation laying for the New World civilization. Okay, so we're moving on now from Book 1 to Book 2 in Stay with God. Stay with God is comprised of 5 books, as you can see in this slide. So Book 1 was entitled Meherabad, the Occurrence of Reality in Illusion. It was biographical about Meherabad's life from birth until 1955, the time of the November Sahavas here at Meherabad, where Francis was given by Baba the order to write this book. And now we're going to move on to Book 2, The Love Song of John Carey, Illusion Singing to Reality. Now the 5 books of Stay with God, as I talked about in an earlier session, present Meher Baba from completely different points of view. The first, the occurrence of reality and illusion being the title, means the avatar is an event that happens within the world of illusion. Now Francis is going to show Baba, or the avatar, in a very different way, within the context of the lover-beloved relationship, where Francis is going to be now playing the role of lover, singing to the divine beloved. To anticipate what's coming, Book 3, after this, is completely different. It's an account of the divine theme, the journey of the soul, Stay with God, God speaking, which of course is related to the title of God Speaks. And Book 4 is going to be on how one disengages from the world and comes to the feet of the perfect master. And Book 5, which is half of Stay with God actually, is a very large disquisition on the subject of art, which Francis interprets in a very encompassing sort of way. So this is Book 2 is the most personal moment in Stay with God, where Francis actually starts to speak in an extremely personal voice as the lover singing to his divine beloved. Now, we saw earlier that some preparation for this appeared in the first book. This is back on page 50 of the biographical section, where Francis is describing who was in attendance at the 1955 Sahavas at Meherabad. And he's talked about the disciples and the 1,001 guests who came over 4 weeks and the villagers. And then after that he says, besides these, there was one, John Carey, an Irish, English, Australian in his 49th year, threshold, according to Hindu classical and Sufi reckoning, of old age, there for the whole month. Most of the Indians who came for 1 week each, a part of 4 language groups, but Francis Brabazon and Don Stevens, 2 Westerners, were permitted to come, and Francis stayed for the entire month period. 4 times as long, so 4 times as long as most of the guests, on account of concrete roads which walked in his sleep and deadened the feet of his spirit for dance, and machines which whirred in his dreams, making the hands of his soul inept for grasping the real. So he was talking about the contrast between a very rural India at the time and a highly technological West that this John Carey is coming from. And thus, as a remedial student, John Carey needed 4 times as long. It's kind of a joke that Francis is telling. But John Carey is simply the name Francis is using for himself. So he wanted to introduce an icon for himself, a token, so that this would provide a mouthpiece for the love song. You see, the book 2 is a very personal kind of expression. So he wanted to have a character introduced there who could actually be the speaker, the voice of this love song. It's himself. I mean, it's not concealed at all. Anyone aware of literary techniques would know this. But it gives Francis a way of both speaking in a very personal voice and at the same time of objectifying himself. He can distance himself from this John Carey, but then in book 2 he can suddenly speak in the voice of this John Carey. So that was the preparation for it that happened back 20 pages earlier in book 1. But so now in the love song of John Carey, here is the title, book 2, the love song of John Carey, Illusion Singing to Reality. That is, John Carey is a being caught in illusion, singing to the divine beloved who is the reality. Now, this shows the avatar, Meherabad, in a completely different aspect. That is, within the frame, the context of the lover-beloved relationship. And that was a big emphasis for Baba. He said, love God, and he also said, love me. He presented himself as the divine beloved, and one approaches God by loving him more and more and more until the lover and beloved merge in one. So this is the most personal and most intimate part of Stay With God. And Francis is situating this book 2 within the context of a genre which is very familiar. That is the love song genre. In popular music all over the world, love songs are extremely popular. There are so many examples of them. And characteristically, within the love song, the lover who is singing puts himself in a position of inferiority to the person he's speaking to. Oh, I love you so much. Won't you give your love to me? Won't you? You're so beautiful and I'm so worthless. That's the characteristic posture of the lover within the love song context. And if you think about it, this is atypical of how we behave most of the time. If somebody comes up to you and says, oh, you're so wonderful and I'm just a worthless piece of garbage, you're going to feel, what's wrong with you? And most people won't humiliate themselves that way, right? That's quite atypical in our social settings. But somehow or another, everybody understands that the love song is a genre where you have a license to do that. Usually you don't say, oh, you've killed me with your beauty and you've rejected me and I'm worthless and you don't humiliate yourself typically before other people that way. But in this genre, there's a kind of a license to give expression to that aspect of the soul's experience, which actually we all do feel sometimes. We all do feel inferior. The lover is characteristically the loser in the relationship. The beloved is the winner and I'm the loser and have some mercy on me. And this, as I say, has tremendous popularity all over the world because people actually experience it. It's a basic dynamic of human life. Here are some other features of the love song genre. It's very dualistic. It's you and me. Most typically the lover is speaking to the beloved. Although there are some love songs where I'll say, oh, she broke my heart and left me. It's a reminiscence on someone who's absent. There are love songs like that too. But in its most paradigmatic form, the lover is speaking directly to the beloved. It's dualistic, it's relational. It has a certain relationship to prayer, because in prayer that's I-you, and I'm in a position of inferiority to you, God. And so actually the love song and prayer, they can merge very easily. The two most characteristic movements in a love song, the two acts, the kind of speech acts, are praise and complaint. Where I, as the lover, praise your qualities, I praise your beauty, and I complain that you are rejecting me, or you're not giving me your love, or you're not giving me things that I want. So if you look at most love songs, they move between those two. Or else I might express bliss if you have given me your love. There are various other forms of love song, and in session 9, one following this, which will also be on book 2, I'll look at some other love songs in literature, just to look at the variety. But like in Western literature, there would be a seduction love song where the lover is trying to get the beloved, in Renaissance literature, to let me kiss you, like that. Or also there can be some love songs that have an implied narrative, that, like Begin the Beguine, actually, which many people would know, is a love song like that. It has the implied narrative of a romance that I had with you long ago that I am remembering. And a lot of love songs are of that type. So this is the genre within which Francis has placed this part of Stay with God. And I feel very much and very sincerely in Francis Brabazon's own voice. I think he's quite real about it. And it's, at least in Western literature, maybe there are more precedents for it in India and in the Middle East, where love songs to God are more common. They were in the West also until 500 years ago, but it's not romantic, I wouldn't say. Many love songs have a kind of an erotic aspect. In fact, in Indian aesthetic theory, there are 8 moods, rasas they call them, and one of them is the erotic, actually. It doesn't have to mean just crude sexual, but a spirit of romance and love and desire and all that. I don't actually see that rasa here. So Francis is having to express a deep and desperate love for another man, Meherabad, without any of those connotations being there, because that man is the divine beloved. So he was pioneering something, at least within our Baba culture, that we haven't had much of. It wasn't just a prayer to God, it was a prayer to God, the man. God the man is Meherabad. And I'll be going through various stretches of it in this session and perhaps spilling over into the next one. But here are some of the major themes that come up in the course of the love song of John Carey. One of the transformations which Francis gives to this is that he relates it to fundamental spiritual and metaphysical themes, which is difficult to do within a love song, but he certainly does do it. So in this slide here, I've listed some of the themes that do come up. And the very starting point, the very first theme he brings up is the everything and the nothing. And you might say, how on earth could a theme as metaphysical as that be used in a love song? Well, he has a very simple way. He says, I am nothing and you are everything. In fact, he explores the tension that is there. I'm nothing, but I'm still here. I feel that I'm something when I'm really nothing. So that tension and that dynamic is there. Another theme that comes up toward the beginning of the love song of John Kerry is the theme of veils. And you've heard about the veil of the beloved. Well, Francis isn't, you know what a veil is, like Muslim women will cover their face with a hijab, say, or women with a veil. They're a very big part of Islamic culture that way. Well, Francis construes veils as everything within the phenomenal world that we see is a veil, because all that is real is God, and everything that we see projected by our sanskaras is a veil blocking the vision of God. So that idea will come up a lot. Another theme that comes up at the beginning and actually provides, you might say, the narrative or scenic frame for the entire love song is a heroic theme. And the image is of Baba as the spearman. You know what a spear is. And Francis is being stabbed by a spear. And he is adoring the man who is killing him. So the spear is entering into him and the wound is deepening and opening more and more, and he's gazing on the face of the spearman, which is Meher Baba. So you see, this is in fact a heroic theme. If anyone who has read the Iliad, and Francis is the Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer are such major sources in the state of God. Anyone who's read the Iliad would be very well acquainted with Achilles on a rampage with his spear killing one warrior after another. So Francis is giving this a kind of a spiritual interpretation, you might say. Another theme that comes up is the desire to become a very menial figure, a desire to be diminished, a desire even to become Baba's dog, like that. Francis also makes a certain use of agricultural imagery. This happens in other places of Stay With God also, but he'll talk about Baba as a cloud of a man showering rain on a landscape that's parched so the grain can grow. He also will use the image of grain being ground into flour for serve as food. Francis makes extensive use of the theme of the word, and in two different ways, although they're interrelated. He talks about Baba's word. You know, Baba said he was going to break his silence with a single word, and Francis alludes to that a number of times. But Francis also says, Baba, give me a word so that I can speak. So she, as you may recall in the first book, Francis invokes the muse. Baba is the muse, saying, sing, Baba, your descent this time on earth. Sing in me. Well, so in this one, as a love song, as part of his complaint, he's saying, give me the word that I can speak out. And at the very end, Francis closes on the note of annihilation of the false self. He kind of makes that psychologically, metaphysically explicit, where he says the purpose is so that I am annihilated and God alone remains, with a quotation from Shankara and a quotation from Jalaluddin Rumi. So these are some of the themes that are going to be weaving their way through the course of Stay With God. And now for the rest of the session, I'm just going to look through parts of it. In fact, I'll read most of it, how Francis develops this. And there's one other thing I'd like to mention, and that is that I was a professor of literature, and I was always very conscious of something, especially in poetry, that no one ever developed a language really to talk about. And I would call it poetic melody. That is the voice of the speaker, the rise and fall, the quickening and the slowing, the loudness and softness. A lot of poetic effectiveness, I found, centers on how well a poet does that. And throughout Stay with God, and very much in this section, the sense of poetic melody is very, very strong. Okay, so here's some of we start with the opening of this. Francis has just closed the 1955 Sahavas, and that's where he ended his biographical section, 1955 November at Meherabad. And we had an introduction to John Carey. And now we have, back in Australia, the most east of the West, John Carey continued the exile, you see. So now he's taking this thread, and he's saying John Carey has left that 1955 Sahavas, and he's back in his homeland. So the poem has been resituated in the West, the most east of the West, because Australia belongs to Western civilization, but it's actually located in Asia, I guess, or south of Asia, you could say. Continued the exile. He had begun so and so many millions of lives ago through his own act of waking up and wanting to know exactly who he was. Okay, this is the divine theme, which is going to be Francis's subject in Book 3. According to God Speaks in Meherabad's metaphysical creation account, creation originated out of God asking the question, who am I? And that projected innumerable jivatmas, or drop souls, on their journey to find themselves as him. So Francis is characterizing John Carey in these terms. A musical question which turned out to be a fugal proposition of infinite possible development. In Indian civilization, the word of God is sometimes called the Brahmanad. The Brahmanad. Nad is word or sound, and Brahma is God. So that word gave rise to all of creation. And Francis is making an allusion here with fugue to Western classical music. Particularly, the supreme master of the fugue was Bach. And for people who are acquainted with that music, it would clearly resonate that someone like Bach will take a musical theme, a simple musical theme, and develop it incredibly into these magnificent, highly developed and complicated musical works. So he's using a metaphysical metaphor here. Okay, so he's introduced his character within the context of the divine theme. Sunbeat and rainbeat, veil upon veil. Now Francis is going to talk about that journey that John Carey is on as a long journey in the midst of scenes that are actually veils. That is to say, everything that John Carey and all of us see are covers obscuring the reality which is God. So he's going to give a lot of metaphors for this. Day veil of brightness, night veil of dark, right? We see brightness in the day, we see darkness at night. Those are both veils. Face veils and form veils. When you see someone else's face, you're not seeing the reality of that person, you're seeing a veil. Form veils, gossamer spun, crowded close and thickly. Sail veils and flag veil, hoisted over a veil of city. Okay, Francis here is bringing back in his Homeric background, where in the Iliad a vast number of ships of Achaeans set sail for Troy, for the siege of Troy. And in the Odyssey, Odysseus sets up his sail to sail across the ocean back to Ithaca. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think of a sail as something like a veil, right? It's a piece of cloth to catch the wind, just like a piece of cloth covers the face. Veil, voyage, and returning. Rain veil of weeping, right? So when it rains, it's like he's comparing that to the experience of sorrow and weeping, and that too is a veil. When you're experiencing sadness and grief and suffering, that too is something which hides you, covers your vision from the experiencing the reality of God. And a place, he hoped, where no one knew of ships and journeying and the far-shadowing spear of his glance. Baba, thou beloved. Here he's giving expression to the thought that I would like to be in a place where I am away from Baba, even though he loves Baba. You know, many of the musts would have this experience. They adored Baba. They longed to see him. They longed for his company. But they were afraid of him because of this spear that would pierce them and destroy them. Okay, here he starts to introduce the theme of the spearman. And this is the kind of frame, the interpersonal setting, you might say, in which the whole love song happens. This is the third stanza and then the fifth. Nursing the wound. Okay, I jumped it. Nursing his wound, never healing, but widening, because the spearhead remained in it. So Francis is describing the relationship between the lover and the beloved as one in which the lover is being pierced by a spear. He's being killed. You know, ultimately, the lover gets annihilated, right? You could say the lover gets killed and thus merges in the beloved. But this spear, the spearhead, goes more and more deeply, and as it does so, the flesh comes off. Well, what is the flesh? The flesh is your false self, your samskaras. Your samskaras are removed. And thus, the more deeply you're wounded, the more clean the wound becomes. See, it's kind of paradoxical. So you might say the entire love song is John Kerry's expression from this standpoint of being stabbed and pierced with a spearhead of wound, piercing him, sloughing off flesh, widening cleanly, and the spearhead of bliss entering more deeply into the flesh veils, ever more hungrily and healingly. You see, the irony is that the more deeply I am pierced with this spear, the more I'm healed, because my ignorance is getting removed. And here we have an agricultural image, which he brings up. As the sun into the earth, when a farmer sets his plow more deeply into the sour subsoil where no sun has reached before. So now the spear is another metaphor is being correlated with it. It's like a plow, it's like a spear, plowing into ground that more deeply than has ever been dug up before. And the sour subsoil is brought up into exposure to the sun, and thus becomes more productive and more fruitful. I'm going over a lot of this closely. We won't go through the whole of it this way, but certain portions I'd like to look at in this way. Now he's going to talk about the three states. You see, okay, we haven't come to the everything and the nothing yet, but the three states in Meher Baba's metaphysical account as Darshana, following Vedanta, are sound, sleep, dream, and wakefulness. And all three of these are veils, are ignorances covering what in Vedanta is actually called Turiya Avastha, the fourth state, which is sleep and wakefulness together and united in the state of God realization. So now he's going to bring this up. Each day of day drag or day flight, curtained within the three curtains of sleep veil and dream veil and awake veil, right? Those are the states of our daily life for all of us. All three are veils. And now he's going to give the very striking metaphors for each of these. Sleep the forgetter and dream the distortioner, right? Dreams provide images of reality in a highly distorted form. And wakefulness, the cruel concretizer. It should be concretizer, it's misspelled in this version. Who sets the dreams in solid forms. And now look at this extraordinary metaphor he gives for what wakefulness does to the distortions of dream. He compares it to a painter. The painter, whose brush strokes are the bones, and whose color is the teeming flesh squeezed out of the tubes of nerves. A very unusual metaphor. That is, this reality we see, the brush strokes are like the bones of a body, and the colors we see are like the flesh being squeezed out of nerves that are the channels of our apprehension of things. Okay, now he's going to come back to this spearman where he really finalizes the development of this form. Nursing the wound, gazing with admiration on the face of the lovely spearman. This is Baba, right? He was saying to himself, okay, the entire love song of John Kerry until this point has been preparing for the love song to begin. And now John Kerry starts to speak in his own voice, and will do so through almost all of the rest of the love song of John Kerry until the final stanza. So, small wonder and great wonder, things are as they are, and this business of everything and nothing. Now, this is one of the creative achievements of the love song of John Kerry, is that he's brought the love theme into direct relationship with Baba's great metaphysical theme of the everything and the nothing. And to jump to this message that occurred right at the beginning of Stay With God, this is a message Baba himself dictated for inclusion in Stay With God. We went over this in an earlier session. I won't read from the beginning, but you'll see, the last lines. This everything is also nothing, coming out of that everything. This nothing has come out of that nothing. That nothing came out of that everything. Okay, and Baba goes on like this. So Baba himself put this theme of the everything and the nothing into the poem. Francis had already written the poem before he did this. But Francis is actually making it a love theme. And he does it this way. This business of being nothing and somebody, nobody feeling he is something. Something in your hand, Baba, or else nothing before your feet. This is the fundamental tension throughout the entire rest of the love song. That is, I, John Kerry, understand that I am nothing, I don't exist, and you are everything. But I feel like I'm still here. This is the paradox. I seem to be here. Either make me something useful in your work, give me a really good, fulfilling job in your work, or annihilate me. Don't leave me in this limbo of being neither the one or the other. So the entire love song of John Carey is working within this enigmatic situation in which he finds himself. Now this is a complaint, right? So John Carey's love song has begun with a complaint. He's saying, make me something in your hand, an instrument for your work, or get rid of me. Don't leave me in this limbo of neither one nor the other. And instantly, he starts to reproach himself. So we're going to see this happening throughout the love song of John Carey, where he'll move to the point where he's complaining, and then he'll say to himself, no, don't complain, be patient, Baba knows best. So that's what he says here. Patience, fool, he is telling himself. Yep, of nothing about something which turns out to be nothing. You see, the things that I'm complaining about seem to be something, but they turn out not to exist at all. They turn out not to be real at all. So don't complain about it. Be patient with it. This isn't real. Nout of piddle-pool puddling, instead of sitting quiet in the crystal steam gold fleck of his love. Okay, jumping on to the next page where he continues with this. Next second stanza here. Turn in yourself, John. So now John Carey is talking to himself because he complained against Baba, and now he's going to say, come on, don't complain, accept it. Turn in yourself, John. Bring back your eyes, fond man, from restless visioning. So don't look out, turn within yourself. What is it to you that an eye is furtive, a lip derisive, that speech is ruined, and no eyes lightning indicts the pages of lovely verse? Now here, Francis, for this brief moment, is introducing something he's going to develop in Book 5, that is the state of the world, where everything has been corrupted and perverted. And he brings in lovely verse, because one of the themes of the love songs of John Carey is John Carey asking for inspiration and a word so that he can express himself properly. But here he says, become in your seeing blind, in your hearing deaf. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next one here. I'll read these next two stanzas. Only a deep cloud of a man can rain rains over parched earth. Okay, there's kind of a shift in his long song that's happening here. This is a bit of a complex stanza, but Baba is being compared to a cloud who can provide sufficient rains to make a parched world, a parched earth, productive. This is an agricultural image. So Baba can give the rain, which can allow my grain to grow, which then can be ground into flour for people to eat. That's the underlying thought here. He's going to develop this variously. My gods are diminishing. Since you are a jealous God. Now what are my gods? What my gods are my false goals, my desires, those things I crave that keep me separate from God. And he goes, this is very Old Testament sounding. Since you are a jealous God, well, why would God be jealous? It's actually an expression of his love and mercy for his lovers, because his jealousy means he wants us to detach from all these cravings that we're bound by and to focus on him and to become one with him. Since you're a jealous God, one lovely in vanity of alone selfness. I mentioned vanity in a previous session. The beloved is vain because Baba would say, how do I look? And he wants you to say, oh Baba, you're so beautiful. Well, why would Baba want that? Well, because he's trying to get you to forget about yourself and to remember the beloved. So the vanity You know what vanity is. It's ordinarily regarded as a fault. But the beloved exhibits the quality of vanity so as to disengage the lover from self-absorption. Let the mill of you grind this to flour for the hungry of you. What is this? This means the poetry he's writing right now. I think he's actually referring to his own work on this book. Grind it into flour. You see the agricultural imagery. The cloud has produced rain, which has allowed grain to come up, which can then be ground into flour for the hungry of you. That is to say, the people who may read this in the future. Or let their hunger grow into a crop of hunger, so that they will the more seek you and cast this as dust to the wind. So here you see the two options again. Make this into flour that can feed others, or create so much hunger in them that they throw this away and I am completely annihilated. You see, Francis wants one or the other. Make me something valuable or get rid of me. Or, when the grinding is done, either to flour or to dust, okay, and now the theme of the word comes up. That is the word that he is asking for, a word on his lips. Give me a word, a lovely singing word in my mouth, some honey word, some wine word to utter in singing. This is the word that would be the basis for his song. Give me a theme. Give me the word that I can use as the basis for my utterance. But then he makes it clear, not for many, but for thou in my ear. In other words, I want a word that I can utter that will please you within me. This is not for the sake of the multitudes of the world. This is not for the world's pleasure. This is for your pleasure, in my ear to delight in, so that my ear may aid mine eyes to fix themselves only on your dear form. You see, give me the word so that I can win your pleasure within me, so that that inspires me all the more to focus only on you so that I can come to you. That's the purpose of art, actually. He's given a shorthand expression of the purpose of art. A singingness of a word, the lovely word of you, the lovely word of your name, thou beloved one, you. Okay, so Francis has gone from telling himself to be patient to complaining. That is, he's asking for something. He's asking for, in this case, a word that can be the basis for his fulfilling the order Baba gave him to write Stated God. And now he does a new thing. He starts talking, he talked about you in my ear. He starts talking to God within himself. And he starts criticizing that God for being bound in the illusion that he is John Kerry. And he's saying, get free from this, God. See, it's sort of a paradoxical thing. Become unstuck, God, in your entrancement in this which is called me, so that your own love for yourself may be released in a clear stream. Okay, now he's going to scold God. Why do you allow yourself to fall into error, attaching yourself to everything you see through these eyes? You are the ever-free, blissful one. I am the veil between yourself and you. Tear this veil which is between us. But if you cannot, ask Baba do it for you. You see, now this is kind of a surprise and a bit of a joke. He's been talking to Baba until now, but he somehow imperceptibly started to talking to the God within his own self and said, get free, and if you can't, ask Baba to do it. This is probably an allusion to a line of Hafiz, where he says, I am the veil between you and yourself. Rise up and dispel this veil so that you can experience yourself. Baba quotes this a good deal. So you see how the veil, I am the veil between you, God, within me, and you, God, is So in this stanza on the next page, he starts saying, ho, ho, the nothingness of the nothing, which is the thing of thingness in everything. What do you say? He's just sort of exclaiming that this is the reality, the nothingness of the nothing, which is the things of thingness in everything. Here's the everything and the nothing theme. But you see, within the everything of God is the nothing with a capital N. And that nothing gives rise to nothingness. And that nothingness manifests as the apparent everything that we see. The world that we see is nothingness manifested as thingness. And that nothingness in its root is nothing. So Francis is just sort of, how do you say, ho, it's sort of an exclamation. He's observing what he sees and recognizing its unreality. Nothing am I, but everything art thou, my beloved, lovely and loveliness itself. You see, this is again the creative use of this metaphysical idea of everything and the nothing as the basis for a love song. I am nothing and you are everything. Dear Lord and child of yourself. But then in the next stanza, he says, but a little love, a little love. So now he's complaining again. He's actually asking for love. Before he was asking for a word, now it's for love. Injected into us could not be altogether frowned upon as miracle making, although it would be a miracle if the injection took. It would be a miracle if it made any difference. You're giving me some love. But now Francis starts, this is a different kind of complaint, and Francis is actually describing something about Baba that's very vivid to me, at least, that where you say something to Baba and he smiles and he's so nice about it, but he doesn't really respond, and you get the sense of infinite God knows everything that you're going to say, and he's going to do what he's going to do anyway, because he knows what's best. Except there's a real quality of Baba the Divine Beloved in these next stanzas. But it's no good talking to you, Baba. You are just too much love. Whatever we say, you just smile with your smile of divine kindness, as much as to say, ho, these children of my mind, myself, why did I ever wake up and start singing? This singing of your smile, stretching out and supporting the nothingness of us, of the nothing. Okay, it's this singingness of his smile, his indulgence, is what allows the creation to continue to exist. This is the Lord of creation, supporting the entire existence. What's the use of talking to you? You already are everything. It's your indulgence that makes everything possible. Whatever I say makes no difference. It's kind of a recognition of an aspect of Baba's mercy and his divinity. In the next stanza, it's no good talking to one who is the saying of the say which one says, because he doesn't listen, because he knows exactly what he is going to say. What's the use of talking to him? Because he already knows what you're going to say, because he's already you. Tired and tired am I of myself. For the wide expanse of the sky of your bosom, I cry. Awaken my heart, that I may love you with service, or else be dust before your feet. Anything but this not even nothing, nor a place in your everything. Something for my child, my father. See, this is reiterating the theme that he set up in the very beginning of John Kerry's speaking here. Give me, don't leave me in the spot where I'm not nothing, but I'm not something either. I don't have a place in your everything. I don't have a place in your work. And yet, I know that I'm actually nothing, but I don't experience that. Don't leave me in this impossible dilemma, oh, my child and my father. And now we have two very moving stanzas. This is kind of a major turn in the love song of John Kerry. The stars weep. This is complaint again, but it's very poetic and very beautiful complaint. The stars weep, and you have compassion on them in their dew to the grass and the wheat fields. The sun sinks in his shame, and you cover him with hiding night. But my tears laugh at me, and my shame is naked before me. There's a love song in the East West Gathering that I might touch on next time, The Dawnlight Breaks, where the culminating line of each verse is, although I see your winning beauty everywhere, unless you give me love, what is all this to me? That is, you're showing your mercy to the stars. When the stars weep, their tears are spread out as dew, right? Dew looks like stars, right? You can see the glitter of them on the grass in the wheat fields. And the sun feels ashamed of itself and sinks, and the night covers it. But in me, everything is just mocking me, and my shame is completely naked. I'm tired of myself, and I can't get away from myself. This is a complaint. A song in your praise or a mute adoration is not much of an asking. Okay, the same complaint. Either give me something, give me a song that I can sing for you, or make me silent where I can just love you and be nothing. One or the other. Don't leave me in this situation of not being nothing and not really being something. And this next stanza is rather a turn. He's almost like reflecting on the fact that Baba's going to die, and he, Francis, is going to die, and he's going to be reborn again and have to go through all of this again. It's rather sad. And there will come a time of your lovely speaking and your leaving. Baba will break his silence, and Baba will drop his body. And my going and returning, I'll die and I'll return, get reborn. And waiting and emptiness and unlovely earth under my feet and wide, wide sky, somewhere you will be. I'll be reborn in a situation, and there'll just be the wide sky where I won't know where you are. I will lose you again. The time will come where I will lose you. And the mother will be answering her child, and the loved one, her lover, with moon and star glint of love eyes. Baba, Baba, God, son of earth and rains of all growing. So this is almost like he'll have a mother who will be answering, and there'll be a sweetheart. He'll have a sweetheart in the future, all of this. He's looking at the fact that his future is going to extend beyond Baba's death and not beyond his own death. And what a sadness there is in that. How long have we been going? How much is this recording?
40 or 10 minutes before. I think 50 minutes.
50 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep going. I'll see if I can finish this portion. Okay. Now we're down to the last few stanzas. Not only can I not sing of you, beloved, but I have no place in your work. This is the same complaint. I can't sing of you, and you haven't given me anything useful that I can do. Because whatever I do, you smile your smile of divine indulgence, and I know that I haven't really served you. Right? Here he says he wants to be a dog. Just where I can just watch you at night. I want to be a menial servant. I want to be the lowest person, but just where I can adore you. Please let me adore you that way. But then he says, I remember your am I not enough? But in other words, he's telling himself not to complain. Complaining is going to end now, and now we're going to move into a section of praise. Am I not enough? Why aren't I content with just you? I remember your utter kindnesses and the hem of your dress in my hand. That's his daman, right? And you're saying, I am always with you. And your own always rejection. That is, even when Baba smiles at me or praises me, there's always a respect in which he has pushed me away. I'm always being kept at a distance. But then he says, but no, It is not any that reject me. Myself rejects me, that I may become acceptable to him. In other words, I shouldn't be complaining him against him for rejecting me. I am rejecting myself until I can actually become worthy of him. And just as dog I had to be on my way up to man, so dog I must become on my way back to myself. And now we're going to go into several stanzas of exalted praise. Baba, thou sower and reaper and grinder, right? We've actually had this agricultural imagery throughout this section. I haven't gone over all of it here. Thou sifter, and again ear grower in each speck of flour. Surely you are in your loving kindness tying up my tongue with the same cords you are cutting away from my heart. He's found himself in this impossible situation where he can't express himself, but he can't be nothing. So he's sort of tongue-tied, but he said, you're actually the inability for myself to find fulfillment in your work is coming from the very unbinding that you're doing in my heart. So I'm just going to read some of these because this is so glorious that follows. This is sheer praise now. We've had a lot of complaining and now it's pure praise. You are the great undoer, so that what shall be done shall be done. The remover who brings forward, the stupefier who makes intelligent, the wind that levels the young wheat, that the stalks may grow strong in the sun. Okay, you undo so that other things can manifest. You undo, you say, my bondage, so that I can proceed in your journey. You remove so I can go forward. Thou stone cutter and gem cutter, thou potter and breaker of pots, thou upturner and returner, thou upheavaler and leveler, thou bender of what is straight, thou straightener of the bent, thou Baba. Isn't this glorious? This is just glorious praise. Thou lovely woman and glory man and child. This is the moon, the sun, and the child born of it. He talked about Zeus Bambino, characterized Baba as a little baby. Thou moon night, thou star night, thou dawn swept of stars, thou morning of sun, thou alone doer, thou adorable and adored, thou us, thou only alone self. Now that's the end of the love song as such, and now we're going to come out of it as a closing stanza, where Francis is going to comment on it as, this is what annihilates the false self and will bring me to union with you. That's the understanding here. Thus was John, you see, was John Carey. We've had John Carey speaking, and now we're stepping out of that into the frame. Complaining and praising. And now Francis gives a comment on complaint and praise. For complaint is praise, inasmuch as complaint is attachment, right? I complain because I'm attached to you, because I feel that you're the one who can answer my complaint. I feel that you're the one with the abundance to fulfill what I want. And praise is complaint because praise is separation, right? I praise you, but it's actually presupposed on that you are different from me, and there's an implied complaint in that. So he's showing how praise and complaint are inseparable from each other. This is a very good, deep insight about the love song genre. And he was recognizing, and now Francis is going to give a commentary on the significance of what all of this is about. That this was the beginning of those subtractions, the sum total of which would be the subtraction of him from himself, right? If you have himself and you take out him, what do you have left? Self, with a capital S. The ego is going to get deleted. The ego is going to get deleted so that the true self can abide. And now we're going to get some heavy Vedantic metaphysics, and is the closing. And this is right from Shankara. There's a great work of Adi Shankara, 6 stanzas that he's actually quoting or alluding to. When the 5 sheaths are subtracted, Atman alone remains. In the psychology of Advaita Vedanta, Atman, the true self, is surrounded by 5 koshas, or 5 sheaths. Francis is going to refer to these at other places. The physical body, subtle body, mental body, Manamaya kosha, Abhijnanamaya kosha, Anandamaya kosha, these 5 sheaths. When they're removed, the self alone remains, and God experiences himself in the I am God state. Thus, Shivoham, that's Ham means I am, and Shiva. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. That is, I am God, I am God. This is a quotation from this very famous work of Shankara's. I am existence, knowledge, bliss, run together as one word. This is the English for Satchidanand. I am Satchidanand. Cease, cease. And this last line is a quote from Rumi. Swallow thy breath every moment. Each moment deny your false self so that you can become the reality. So there's a review of this love song. You can see how Francis has made it a very personal expression. This is very much from him. I think this is 100% sincere from beginning to end. And at the same time, he's woven in some of the great themes from Meherabad's metaphysical account of things. Okay, so that's going to be it for this time. Next time, which on book 2, I'm going to just look at some other love poems just to explore further the love song genre as a way of giving context to what Francis has done and further providing a way of seeing how he has developed the genre. Okay, Jeba.